Hey, Fidelity. What's it cost to invest with the Fidelity app?
Start with as little as $1 with no account fees or trade commissions on U.S. stocks and ETFs.
That's music to my ears.
I can only talk.
Investing involves risk, including risk of loss. Zero account fees apply to retail brokerage accounts only. Sell order assessment fee not included. A limited number of ETFs are subject to a transaction-based service fee of $100. See full list at fidelity.com/commissions. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC, member NYSE SIPC.
It's the Larry Kudlow Show. Free market prosperity starts here. Now, here's Larry Kudlow.
So, Kamala Harris this week said that she's a capitalist. Gave a speech in Pittsburgh, her third economic plan in the 2 months of her candidacy. And I'm a capitalist, she said. But she's not a capitalist. And her new economic plan, 80 pages in length, which no human being could possibly read, shows that it's all about big government socialism. So let's bring in Dr. Arthur Laffer, chairman and chief economist of Laffer Associates, Presidential Medal of Freedom recipient, and his new book, The Trump Economic Miracle and the Plan to Unleash Prosperity Again, written with Steve Moore, my dear friend and mentor. Arthur, I'm just going to read some of the lowlights of this plan, which the Wall Street Journal editorial page called Bidenomics 2.0, and then some. Raise a corporate tax, raise a capital gains tax, create an unrealized capital gains tax, kill the small business tax deduction, the 199A, kill that 20% deduction. Massive entitlement spending, massive transfer payment spending. By the way, the entitlements and transfers have no work requirements at all, and they're all cash refunds because most of those people don't pay any taxes. But wait, there's more. Student loan cancellations, which is illegal according to the Supreme Court. $25,000 for home buyers, which will jack up prices. Price controls on grocers and who knows what else. Nationwide rent controls and ending the right to work laws across the country. So, Art, what do you think of that?
Oh my God! You could Beelzebub could not have gotten a better list if they wanted to destroy humanity on Earth.
Yeah,
it is outrageous. She is not a capitalist. You are correct on that. She is a big government person. That's where she's worked all her life, and that's been her profession. And so obviously she thinks government should control everything, and she always looks to government to solve any problems there might be. And that's classic. So there we go. You have it in black and white.
Now, you're right. That last point, it's about the government control of the economy, and it rejects private action, human action, private investment. They have it just is a complete. I mean, Newt Gingrich coined the phrase "big government socialism," and I just think it fits.
Yeah, it is, Larry. It is, and it has an assumption underlying it that you and I find not distasteful. Is that people do not respond to incentives. And if people do not respond to incentives and you raise taxes on them, they'll just keep working like ever and just pay more in taxes. Well, you and I know that's not true. If you pay people who don't work, if you don't have any work incentives in there, they're not going to go to work, Larry. They're just plain not. They're going to take their money and go and have a party in Las Vegas until the system dries out and falls dead. And that's where they are, and we've seen this happen in many other places. The classic is just look at Britain, look at Europe, look at some of these other countries, look at Japan, and it's a classic case of destroying everything that made America what we are, and prosperous, fine, private enterprise country.
None other than Steve Forbes. Steve Forbes was on set with me yesterday on the TV show with Sandra Smith, and we went through this, the highlights, or I'm calling them the lowlights of her new plan.
I heard that. It was great. Lowlights is a great new phrase, by the way.
So even Steve Forbes, all right, who's a very rational, common sense guy, although he has the highest principles, like yourself for that matter, and Steve said, you put this program through that she's promoting, you'll get a stock market crash, and you won't get a recession, you'll get a depression. Now, that's interesting. Scott Bessent was the first guy about a month ago to say that this would lead into a depression. Steve Forbes said that yesterday. And I was surprised, but you think about it. I mean, the unrealized capital gains tax, okay, on high earners, high-end earners. I mean, that would just destroy stocks. That would destroy business. You'd get a cascading effect throughout the economy.
Yeah, and you can show that empirically, Larry, because it's a wealth tax that she's proposing on unrealized capital gains. We have another wealth tax in this country. It's called a property tax. And where you see property taxes are high, you see destroyed values for all the homes and all the buildings and construction in those areas. Detroit has some very high property taxes. So does Chicago, Hartford, Bridgeport, St. Louis, Kansas City, Cleveland, Ohio, Detroit, all of these places. Look at what's done to property values. It's destroyed them. It will do the same thing to the stock market and to the capital stock of America if they do it on capital gains, unrealized capital gains. It's clear, and the numbers are there.
Yeah, good point. Art, let's do some highlights, not lowlights. The Trump economic miracle and the plan to unleash prosperity again. Give us a few highlights from that book.
Yeah, it's really looking at his first term as a continuation, Larry. And when you look at the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, he dropped the rate down to 21% on corporate profits. He wants to go down to 15%. That bill was just incredibly successful. It took the personal income tax rate from 39.6 to 37. It really lowered the death tax substantially, and there are a lot of other features. It paid for itself in the first 2 years. Not waiting. It led to the lowest poverty rates for the poor, the minorities, disenfranchised. It led to us economically way outperforming Europe. So it was really successful. Then you look at his Operation Warp Speed to get the pandemic under control with the development of the vaccine. And he did that in 10 months, Larry, a little under 10 months. It should have taken 6-7 years. But he did it in that, and I have a personal story, as you know, of my daughter Rachel on how much extra benefits came from that. Then you look at the deregulation of oil and energy. We became energy independent in his first term. Pretty fantastic. Then you look at the appointments to the Supreme Court. Now, I'm not talking about the social policies here and all this other stuff. What they did, and I think it was the Chevron decision it was called, was rolled back the regulatory body's abilities to regulate and pass new legislation through the regulatory body, bypassing Congress, which is just phenomenal. I could go through it a lot more than that, but, those just give you a flavor. I think, my personal judgment looking at this really carefully, that President Trump's first term in office was the single best first term in the history of the United States, bar none, in economics. Now, I don't talk, as you know, in any other field other than economics, but it was spectacular. And I think he's going to do the same thing in his second term.
If he gets a chance for the second term, and things like lowering corporate tax to 15%, which is a terrific idea, going back and opening up the fossil fuel spigots.
Beautiful idea.
Right, 10-1 on the deregulation. Every one regulation he would cut 10. Bringing Elon Musk and a bunch of business CEOs in to go through the government, like the Peter Grace Commission, and start slashing.
The Little Hoover Commission in California that Reagan was involved with as well.
Right. So, get rid of unnecessary and corrupt programs. Can we break through? I just got less than a minute, Art. Can we get back to 3% trend line growth, 3% plus trend line growth?
I think we can go much higher than that, Larry. I don't want to give numbers and then be held liable for them later, but we can go much higher than that for trend line growth for at least 5 or 10 years.
How much higher?
I think, we could get a period of 2 or 3 years in the 4.5% to 5% range if he does it sharply, quickly. We can get like the January 83 to June of 84, Reagan, when he came in and did the big tax cuts took effect. We had growth there in that 18-month period of 12%, an 8% per annum growth rate. We may not be able to do that, but we can do something 4 or 5%, I think, for a couple of years. And that would make a big dent on this world.
Yeah, that would slash the budget deficit, by the way. Growth dissolves deficits. Growth dissolves debt. The debt to GDP ratio would come way down, and deficits would come way down, and the entitlement spending would come down. You wouldn't need all that stuff. Anyway, terrific stuff. Art Laffer. Art's book, The Trump Economic Miracle and the Plan to Unleash Prosperity Again. Thank you, Arthur. We appreciate it very much. Folks, we're going to take a quick break. On the other side of the break, Breitbart's John Carney and I will talk about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
This is the Larry Kudlow Show.